Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. And so I am so excited to welcome Denisse to the Glow Up Girl podcast. So welcome, Denisse.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Anytime I can talk mindset and pivoting mindsets, I love to welcome that conversation because I always think we're always evolving, even in our own mindsets. Even if we think we have a mindset of this, it's like we're always changing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive in. Why don't you tell the audience about yourself and what you do?
So Denisse Espalter, and I'm actually based up in Rochester, New York, which is upstate New York. And my background was really fashion marketing and design. I worked in New York and I worked in Miami, and then I started to work with Lord & Taylor and was doing events and marketing, and then COVID hit. I lost my job, and then I was home with my kids. So I wanted to get back into what I was doing, but also I kind of reflected on, as women, we wear so many different hats at so many different moments. And I kind of looked at COVID as an example, losing my job and being home with my kids and trying to be a teacher and trying to get them to understand the whole pandemic and what was the new norm. And I still felt like women need that time to just really, feel good about themselves, still have that, positivity that we are surrounded by awesome and supportive people around us. Mm-hmm. So I launched my company called Unboxed Life and Style, which actually started with boxes, which more of like gift boxes. Mm-hmm. And I partnered up with a lot of different women-owned businesses and kind of collaborated to kind of we couldn't go shopping. People couldn't do anything. Yeah. So I said, women still love to get, let's have some smiles, get something in the mail, and kind of launch that way. And it did really well. A lot of like self-care and, journaling and, stuff that we were all home and trying to still kind of stay sane, but and trying to get to some sort of normalcy. But then that also brought me to really helping, and having conversations with women. And I've transitioned myself so many different ways. And I feel like I've said before, like I call this like my second part of my life where I feel the strongest. I had to leave an unfortunate, very toxic marriage. And, that was a big hurdle for me to go over, having two kids, and then finally actually meeting someone that actually was on the same page. And now we have a beautiful blended family, going through postpartum depression and having those conversations with women and how it's kind of taboo to talk about. So I started to really focus as well as not just the boxes, but helping women to really kind of learn to talk about certain things and know that they're not alone and kind of pivot their journey. And I always say, style yourself with confidence. So doing it all together, and that's how my background and how it all kind of came together for me recently.
I love that. I love everything. I love that you talked about the different transitions of your life. And, and I think that's so important for people out there listening or watching to understand is that there are no limits to how you can evolve as a person, right? Like, period. And it's so inspiring that, you set out on a venture to do one thing, but you discovered this opportunity, with even your own life story and how you can help other women. And I think that is so inspiring. And I think that's just fantastic. So
thanks. It's rewarding. And, I think a lot of times people have to remember it's okay to be vulnerable and to share, because your story may help someone else, and everyone has a story, and just kind of talking through things like that is very important. So
I agree. I am so there with you because that is number one, because I think so many times, obviously in the world that we live in and, I guess social media, people always seeing the good side of someone's life or and that's fine. It's totally fine to share, that stuff. But I think when you truly want to help people, you are able to share like the things that aren't so great.
Right.
all the
Yeah.
time. And, and I think that that is amazing because it's like, even for like myself, like even just having this podcast and talking to different people allows for me to share things about my own life, and, that may not like be great, but I'm like always just trying to, I'm always like, I'm just a work in progress. I'm trying to work through, these things, no matter what it maybe it's, working so hard all the time, working too long, and, and having to like, figure out the balance between like a marriage and, a day job and a business on the side. Like, so I think that that's super important. So let's talk about some of the women that you serve with your company.
So I serve, it's a range of women. So I have women that come to me that are, either wanting to revamp their style. And it's my background being that I do offer styling services, but then I have women that are in that part of their journey in life that want to not just pivot their style on the outside, but on the inside. And there's one thing that I always say, and you brought up social media, which is so true. A lot of people always say, look from the inside out, but I always say from the outside in, and I kind of flip it because everyone's always the same, like this what's in front of you and what you're showcasing, but behind closed doors and behind what's really within is what really a lot of times we have to work on. And once you start doing that, it just develops into then what comes out. So, that's, especially the women that I do talk to and stuff, it becomes a whole entire, I wouldn't say package, but journey with them, to develop, where they want to be. And that can be, internally, physically, inside and out, and just kind of go through that. And I talk a lot about self-care too, because I feel that we forget, again, as women, because we're trying to live these crazy, life. Society has, put all these pressures on us, but I think we forget to really, that self-care. And I'm not just saying, go get a massage, but,
right.
really thinking about yourself and your mind. And like one thing I do, and I tell other women, create like your own schedule. Like my mornings, I have kids and I have to make lunch and I get them to school, whatever. But I try to make sure I wake up at least 40 minutes beforehand, before the craziness. And I try to set the tone of my day to have my cup of coffee or to read or catch up on some stuff and just kind of like feel like, okay, I'm good. Now let's go. So, that's just really important to make sure you take that time, whatever form it may be, if it's journaling, if it's meditation, if it's, going for that 20-minute power walk, just to get yourself going. It's very important.
Yes. And I like that you talked about, the inside, you've got to start and work on those things. And like you said, the self-care and how you take care of yourself is most important, because you can't take care of other people if you can't take care of yourself. And I know that sounds like simple to say, and that's just because I'm like a recovering person who didn't have boundaries up until about probably I guess like now like a year and a half ago, right? And so you're just trying to do your and I think a lot of times with women, we're always like, well, if I'm pouring into the world and giving so of myself and helping people, and that's great, like that's amazing to do. But I remember my therapist telling me that if no one's ever pouring back into you, then you're going to like tap out and you're not going to have anything to give to anyone else around you. And so that is so important. So it's like you said, it's the small things like getting up like earlier in the morning. And like my husband and I always have this disagreement because I know it bothers him, but like it's what I need to do for me to set the tone for the day. So like we get to the weekend, like he gets up at 10. I get up at I usually wake up on the weekend at like 7:00. And so for me, I'm like, great, I'm just going to get up. I'm going to go ahead and get up. I'm going to start doing stuff, if I got glow up girl stuff to do. And that helps me to set, because on a day like Saturday, when I'm recording in the afternoon, then I need to do other work in the morning. And so this morning I came out of the bathroom and he was just like, oh my God, I just like, why can't you ever just like sleep in like a normal person? And I was like, I know plenty of normal people who get up early on the
Right.
weekends and, and get going. And he was just like, I just like, you never get any rest. And I'm like, but for me, like I said, I literally had been lying here for like about 30 minutes trying to like force myself to go back to sleep.
Right. Right.
And my brain is just like already spinning and it's on and it's telling me like, oh, you get up and you can do this, and this before. And so, and so it's so hard because it's like they on it. But for me, that's that's me taking care of myself because it gives me quiet time in the morning to read, to journal, to get set my day on target, gives me time to spend with the puppy, like, so it's like it's so funny because it's like people, they don't understand, like, that's not self-care for you. Like, you don't need to do that.
Right.
For him, your self-care is you sleeping till 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true though. But and it's just it's just wired how, whatever works for you. And like you said, you have other things going on, but it's your time to feel like you are accomplishing what you need to do.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Yeah. So when you're having discussions with the women that you work with, what are some of the biggest setbacks that you see that sort of hold women back from moving forward?
Fear. That dreaded F word of fear, I always say, is something that really, really holds a lot of us back. And, I've talked a lot about that because going through my, situation of, leaving a marriage, which petrified, you never know what's going to be on the other end or whatever. But at the same time, just knowing that there is something there, you wouldn't know, how can I say this? If there wasn't fear there, it's because, things are okay, but because things are not going right and you know it in your heart and in your gut, you got to fight through that fear. And I tell a lot of women, like, start with the list. Like, where do you see yourself within, a couple months, a year, 5 years, and let's tackle it, at a time to where you're comfortable, but knowing that you can go through that breakthrough and leave that fear in the back, and I think that's what holds so many of us back. But you have to really push yourself to know that there is something better. You can, manifest whatever the heck you want to get there. So that's, I think, the biggest thing for women. And I think it's because a lot of times, again, we put so much pressure on us, and a lot of times I think it's human nature. We are scared of change, and the unknown, but at the same time, you have to push through it, because if you can keep your mind to getting to the other side of what is the non-fear, knowing that you're going to be there, you're going to be okay, you can do it. So,
yeah. And I think too, what you talked about with fear, I think a lot of times on the other side of fear is that reward.
Right.
It's like, and I always feel like whenever there's something that I'm like thinking about doing, that I feel passionate about doing, and then when the fear or the doubt creeps in and says like, nah, you probably don't want to do that. Let's just stick to the routine, girl.
Right.
But it's like whenever you do take that step and you just trust your instinct, it's like, wow, look at that reward, that payout on the other side.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So I would say probably a lot of, getting beyond that fear as well has a lot to do with your mindset and how you're thinking, how you're perceiving yourself or the situation. So what advice do you give to sort of level up that mindset to attack, that next thing in your life?
Yeah. And, there's an exercise that I do with a lot of people that is write down like your 10 most badass moments. And everyone's always like, oh, I haven't done it. And it's like, no, you do. I can probably guarantee you have, and write them down. Everyone has something that they've been really good at. And I say badass because it's like, what are your moments? I mean, come on, girl, you know what it is. So once you start to write that down and start to realize how powerful you are and what you have accomplished, that right there internally starts to really help you start to flip that switch on getting your mindset to the next level. Because once you start believing in yourself and what you actually have accomplished, because a lot of times we don't give ourselves that credit of what we've done, how far we've come, or how much we've been able to tackle on a daily basis or whatever.
Mhm.
So once you're actually able to do that, it starts to kind of kick it up a notch, and you start to kind of see, and you start to kind of unweave whatever is in your way to be like, okay, actually, my mind, let's move forward, and like, what else are we going to tackle? Because you know that you have tackled before these other amazing things. So what's next? So I think once you start writing things down, I'm big on like pen to paper and like
Mhm.
writing things down. And it's just so powerful. And I think that's what's really helpful for a lot of the women that I work with.
Yes. So what's one of your top 10 badass moments?
Good one. I would have to say, actually, delivering my kids, because I would have to inject myself every day with the blood thinner. I had no idea
Oh,
until I got
wow.
pregnant that I had a blood disorder where I clotted too easily.
Mm.
So I did it the first time, and then I was like, crap, I really am a badass if I'm doing this again.
You got that right.
Right. So yeah.
Wow. Because that would be, the thought of having to inject yourself with anything is,
Oh, I know.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's like, it's okay. I don't care if somebody like else does it, but to self, do it like,
Right.
you are a badass, my friend. So let's talk about some of the programs you offer and how you work with women. And also, please tell us about the boxes and, how all that works, how, anybody out there that may be a woman, entrepreneur, business owner who may want to work with you, and anybody out there saying, I got to get in on this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so you can definitely contact. I have different programs, and a lot of times it's just based on what you're looking for and what you want to accomplish. So it can be, I offer, coaching sessions with women that are actually, and again, in that mindset of like where they're stuck and feeling like they need to get to the next level, and how are we going to accomplish that? And then I also offer services with styling and trying to get yourself. Sometimes, like I say, it's not so much like the clothes you wear, but your actual overall confidence and who you are and where you want to be. So I offer all those kind of things. And then the boxes, I do have the women's boxes and then entrepreneur boxes. So just things to kind of get your mindset and get out there. And you can either do a one-time box, and I have a couple that are 3-month subscriptions. But you can find everything on the website, which is unboxedlifeandstyle.com. People can reach out to me there, and all my social media platforms too.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure we put all the links to find you and to your social platforms in the show notes so that everybody can find you. I think that's fantastic. I love a good box. And I definitely will say, like, during, being in the pandemic and not being able to go out and shop and just shopping online, like getting my box subscriptions to anything was just it was like a surprise, like, oh, what's coming, and so I was getting the boxes, and my puppy was getting his box too.
Oh, I know, but it's cool because you get like, it is you get lit up and smiling like, oh, what's inside this box? And I do like offer, my boxes are different all the time, and not every box is the same. So like if two people order the same box, are ordering at the same time, they might have different items. I like to kind of switch it up and again, support other women with their companies, and, kind of incorporate and collaborate that way. But it's fun. I'd like to, make sure there's some good surprises in there.
I love that. There's nothing like surprise and delight.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Denisse. This was a great conversation and a lot of good tips. It's so important. I think it was such a mix of like good information. I love, your story of going, starting with the one thing and discovering that you had this gift of your own journey to share and help other women.
Thank you. It's been good. Yeah.
Yeah. And kudos to you for like, jumping in and not, letting fear even, tell you like, hey, don't do this. Do you want to share your story? So I think that's something to be admired.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So now we're going to switch into our last segment, which is 5 Things with Denisse. Helps people out there get to know you just on a little more intimate level. Okay. So my first question, and I love this question, how do you start the day? I know you sort of talked about it a little bit, but just tell us what your morning routine is.
Well, yeah, waking up to my alarm so I can go downstairs. I have to have my cup of coffee. I love coffee in the morning, especially now my pumpkin spice is a must.
Yes, girl.
I know. And then I either am just kind of catching up on, whatever's going on or news or emails and just kind of taking that time, but also quiet time. I like to make sure I have that quiet time to myself to just sit before the quote unquote craziness of my, school and kids and getting out the door, but also making sure that I'm pretty organized in my thoughts. Like, okay, this is what we're going to do today. This is what we're accomplishing. And it's a little bit more of that clarity feeling for me. So that's usually what I like to do.
Awesome. How do you deal with a challenging day?
Walk away sometimes when you need to. I think that in the sense of like taking a break. I think sometimes we forget to do that. And music, the power of music for me is if I just need to jam out in my car when I'm driving because it's been one of those days, and it's okay to cry. Sometimes I'm like, just let your emotions fly, girl. It's fine. Let it out,
Exactly.
but that's how I deal with it. Usually, music is very powerful for me. So,
all right. Well, on that note, speaking of music, what are some of the songs in your playlist currently?
Ooh, good question. I actually, God, what is this? My phone's right here. I'm going to actually look
go ahead.
I keep jamming to this one song. It's Waterfalls, the old TLC song, but redone by these two girls. What are their names? I totally forgot. Hold on. Chloe and Haley.
Oh yeah, I love them. Yeah.
So, but I've been like, I keep playing the song over and over, but they did this rendition that I'm like, I can't stop hearing it.
I love that. And yeah, they make some really good music.
Yeah.
All right. So when you're not working, what do you like to do?
Hanging out with my girls, my kids, just having that family time. Being that we are a blended family and, obviously sometimes we have every other weekend, the time that we do get with our kids is so incredibly amazing and special. So I'm a family girl. So at the end of the day, we can spend as much time, if it's playing a game or outside or, watching the girls just do their thing, that just fills my heart. So.
Awesome. And the last question is, how do you end the day?
Either I love taking hot showers at night just to relax. So usually I like to do that. And if there is a wonderful bottle of wine to just wind down with, I'll have a glass of wine. Usually, or, just hanging out, just relaxing, either sitting on my deck with my husband and just kind of just that whole chill vibe of just like, okay, the day was done. Let's move on. We accomplished what we did and just kind of like appreciate, where we're at.
I like it a lot. And I'm right there with you on a hot shower. Like I'm not really a bath girl. Yeah. And so when people are, I'm like, oh God, I'd much rather just stand in the shower for like 15, 20 minutes. Like, it just feels so good. That hot water, relaxing you. So I'm definitely a shower girl. Well, Denisse, thank you again for coming on and spending some time with me. You always have a place to come back if you want to share any new news, anything that you're working on in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.